It's Wednesday, October 14th, and this is What Did I Miss? The show that finds everything that's interesting on the internet so you don't have to. Before we get started, if anyone has suggestions on stories that I should cover, you can either leave a comment on the video or tweet me at I'm Not Jeff Hans. If I choose your story for the next day's show, I'll give you a shout out in that episode. Also, a quick shout out to the members of the Bearded Villains who happened to catch my video the other day about the events that unfolded to their chapter in Sweden. If any of you are watching, I thank you and return your villain salute. Without further ado, let's do this. Well, the rat-faced douchebag Martin Shkreli's back in the limelight. You may remember him as the guy who purchased the drug Daraprim and then boosted the cost of it 5,000% overnight. Well, he's now under an antitrust investigation for limiting the distribution of the drug. The drug is used to treat parasitic infections, which is common to those who have immune system diseases, such as those with cancer or AIDS. But despite the obvious price gouge, which at this time still has not been resolved, Shkreli is being questioned about distribution to generic drug companies being limited to guarantee that there will be no cheap alternative to the drug. When originally asked for an explanation into the increase of the price of the drug, Martin Shkreli claimed that it was for altruistic reasons, alleging that he'd used the excess profits to create a more efficient drug. A drug, by all accounts, that functions perfectly fine. I swear this guy reminds me of the worst casting of a Bond villain ever. And my offer still stands. If you find out what his address is, I will send him every single one of my bowel movements for the foreseeable future. In a bag, directly to his doorstep. In Science's awesome news, NASA just released Ultra HD 4K imagery of Jupiter. The footage highlights Jupiter's famed red spot, which is a hurricane that has been raging for hundreds of years. Within the spot, a filament was made clear, suggesting that the storm is actually getting smaller. But don't be fooled, the single red spot is still about the size of 3 Earths. If you'd like to see more of the footage and understand more of what it means, check out the links below. Good news for those of you who sit at a desk all day. A recent study found that sitting for extended periods of time is no different than standing for the same length of time. Researchers tracked over 5,000 people for 16 years that the only contributing factor to shorter lifespans when it comes to in-office time is a lack of exercise. The study cautions that there's no difference between sitting at a desk or those who used standing desks. They say that the emphasis here should not be on whether you're standing or sitting, but movement in general. Any time that the body is at rest, sitting or standing, it can adversely affect the health of the individual. The best advice is the same as it's always been. Make sure that if you're stationary at work, that you're exercising in your free time. In a bit of YouTube awesome, Screen Junkies did an honest trailer for Jurassic World, which turned out to be pretty hilarious.
From not Steven Spielberg comes the best Jurassic Park sequel ever made, which really isn't saying much. Alan. Jurassic World.
And on late night, Stephen Colbert crammed an entire symphony into the studio just to play music from the Zelda video game franchise. So be sure to check that out. Have you heard the saying that no problem is so bad that it can't be made worse? Well, a man in a van down by the river did just that. Mistakes were made in Clay County, Kansas. An officer driving down a state highway saw black smoke bellowing from the center of a field. What the officer came upon was a van engulfed in flames. When he attempted to get closer to the vehicle, he heard what sounded like gunfire coming from the cab of the scorched van. The officer then backed away and found the owner of the van standing at a distance watching the flames. The owner of the van explained that he was burning garbage. That is, until the flames got out of control in the field. With the owner's quick wit, he decided to extinguish the flames with the van. But the owner of the van, not knowing how rubber works, the tires of the van caught fire. At which point, the driver abandoned the vehicle because of the ammunition and guns and a full tank of gas in the van. So this just goes to show you can't always fight fire with fire. Let me preface this last story by saying that I usually keep things lighthearted on this show, but I came across this story and I felt like it needed to be shared and talked about, so here we go. An Oregon couple is going to jail over the preventable death of their premature child. Dale and Shannon Hickman are members of a cult known as the Followers of Christ Church, and when their son David was born 2 months premature at a mere 3 pounds 7 ounces, the couple turned to prayer in lieu of medical attention, as a conviction of the church is that they do not believe in doctors. In court, the couple claimed that they saw nothing wrong with their son until minutes before he passed away, which was only 9 hours later, which an expert on the subject said was a complete lie. Instead of seeking the medical attention that the child obviously needed, they prayed and anointed the infant with oil, which science has proved that oil on the forehead solves most medical problems. Each of the parents will spend a minimum of 6 years and 3 months behind bars, which seems light given that this death was completely preventable. They were convicted on the basis that a reasonable person would have been aware of the risk of David's death. The cult exists in multiple states and has been responsible for 78 preventable infant deaths. In a day and age where couples struggle to have children who give their lives to know that joy, why people like this are blessed with something that they immediately dismiss will be a mystery that I will never understand. Hate to leave it on a sad note, but that is all I have for today. If you'd like to see more about anything that I talked about, check out the links in the description below. Please subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and be sure to share the video with your friends. And as always, I'll see you tomorrow when you ask yourself, what did I miss?